Is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes, is going for it. Oh my God! What a goal!
And that will do it! One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. Will the Philadelphia Union go again this Saturday as they face FC Cincinnati? The Philadelphia Union are looking to make it 5 games in a row without a defeat. And help me preview this Saturday's game is a guy returning to the podcast. You might remember him last year when we talked about FC Cincinnati versus the Philadelphia Union. He is one of the hosts of the podcast, Cincinatti Soccer Talk, Mr. Brad Weigel. Brad, thanks for joining me today. How are you, man?
Hey, Todd, it's good to be back with you. It looks like things are going well in Philly.
Yeah, and right. If you would have asked that a month ago, everybody's in full panic mode where I think we were floating between 5th and 7th in the playoffs, and everybody's like, oh, yeah, this team, I don't know how we're going to do anything.
What a world.
Exactly, where you guys are like, yeah, we hope that would be us, but I guess we don't know how good we have it in Philadelphia compared to what you guys are doing, what Toronto's been doing the last 2 years. And look, even LAFC, I thought they would have a fantastic team this season, and they're not playing as good as they are. So, yeah, for all the Philadelphia Union fans, myself included, when we're like, okay, maybe it's now time to start to panic a month ago. Yeah, I guess we have nothing to complain about where we sit in 3rd place. And, yeah, like I said, looking to make it 5 games in a row undefeated. But like we just said, you said, what a world. It's not been a great season for you guys, as you guys are 4-8-15. And, yeah, we probably don't need to bring that up too much. I'm sure you don't want that. But you guys have a chance to finish with 3 straight last place finishes for 3 straight years. You guys have had 3 full-time managers, two full-time GMs that have come and gone. I know I don't need to remind you guys of this. You guys are probably tired of talking about this on your website. You guys are probably tired of writing about this. It's like, how much positivity can you guys find with just the seasons that you guys have had the last couple of years? I know. But I really thought that when you guys hired Jaap Stam, that it was a good hire, because what did you guys struggle with? Conceding goals. And Stam was an excellent defender in his playing days, so I just thought that, yeah, it would make sense that he would bring along some of his ideas, what made him such a great defender. And I guess that didn't translate to being a good coach, and you guys got rid of him a couple weeks ago. You guys paid $13 million for Brazilian striker Brunner, 7 goals, 1 assist, and 27 matches played. You bring in Luciano Acosta back into MLS, 6 goals, 7 assists, and 25 matches played. But yeah, this year was supposed to be different for you guys, and it was anything but that.
FC Cincinnati, they're the content kings, man. While they might be bad, there's always something new on the horizon, whether it's new general manager, Jaap Stam firing, spending probably transfer record off season for any MLS club in the history of the league, top 5 payroll in the league, yet to just have some of these losses. It's disappointing, but as we always like to say, it's the ope that kills you in Cincinnati. But I do kind of feel, I would have said this last year, that we were at rock bottom last year. I do really kind of feel we're on rock bottom. We got the right general manager hire with Chris Albright, which I'm sure we'll talk about. The front office and the ownership is not afraid to spend. They're not afraid to bring in high profile, high priced players. I just think it's how they fit the pieces of the puzzle together. That's been a struggle ever since they've come into the league. And that's really going to be the number one task with Chris Albright going forward.
It's a lot different than playing in the USL, where you guys had a fantastic team in there, and then you guys come up to MLS, and it's like a whole different ball game and everything. You guys revamped your roster from the roster you brought up from USL, and now it doesn't look anything like that roster. Like we said, so many different GMs, so many different coaches, and you brought up Chris Albright, so that's exactly what I wanted to get into, where we mentioned all the darkness that you guys have faced this season and the last couple seasons. Chris Albright, it doesn't get better than that, right? We know how special Chris Albright was in Philadelphia. For any Philadelphia Union fan that's been living under a rock the last couple of days, FC Cincinnati announced that Chris Albright is the new GM. And I know Taylor Twellman was like, oh, this is such a huge loss for the Philadelphia Union. Try to make it seem like Philadelphia Union, like they should have done something to stop him from leaving. And I don't think the Philadelphia Union wanted to. It's like we just signed Ernst Tenner to a new contract extension a few months ago. And why would Chris Albright want to sit behind him when Ernst Tenner gets this brand new contract where, it had to be the right project, the right time. And I believe the Cincinnati project was exactly what Chris Albright was looking for. He wanted to be the man, be the general manager, to have his fingerprints over the whole organization. I know him and Ernst Tenner kind of split those duties a little bit in Philadelphia, but you have a guy in Chris Albright who Jim Curtin and Ernst Tenner both talked about how Chris Albright has such a great understanding of the salary cap in MLS. They both said that he was the very best in MLS, that he's in a class of his own. His player recruitment skills are one of the best in MLS, where you look. He brought in players like Elsinho, Ali Bedoya, Andre Blake, Jack Elliott, Casper Shabelko, Jameer Montero. All those guys are still on the roster. Maybe not Elsinho, but everybody else I just mentioned are just contributing to the Philadelphia Union a ton. And it's part of the reason why the Philadelphia Union won their first trophy last year, the Supporters' Shield, because of these key players that Chris Albright had a hand in bringing them to Philadelphia. And the one thing that I love about Chris Albright, and I'm so glad that you guys decided to not go with a European GM, where you see so many teams in MLS do this. They bring in a manager or a GM, doesn't matter, who have no experience with MLS. They don't know how MLS rolls. You look at what happened down in Atlanta with Heinze, where, okay, yeah, another great defender in his playing days, but maybe not so much a great coach. And it proved that he didn't really have that great of an understanding with Atlanta United. You guys say, okay, let's go out and find somebody that has an understanding of MLS. Chris Albright has that with his playing career, and he has that with the last 7-8 years working as the technical director for the Philadelphia Union. And like you mentioned, Brad, he finally has a transfer budget where he had a little bit of money to work with in Philadelphia. He brought in those players that I mentioned a little bit without spending millions of dollars. Like we talked about, $13 million for Brenner. You bring in Luciano Acosta. Big signings right there. And Acosta, I'll get your thoughts on that a little bit later on the podcast, what you think about him and the season he's having in his return back to MLS. But look, I think it's a great hire, and you guys wrote about it on your website, Cincinatti Soccer Talk. And the only way that this blows up in your guys' face is if the front office grows impatient and gets rid of him way too soon, which they've done that the last couple of GMs and head coaches. But what are your thoughts of the appointment of Chris Albright, Brad?
Sure. I think one of the biggest things lacking with FC Cincinnati over the past 3 years is any MLS experience on the coaching staff or in the front office. Jeff Birding was the president. Honestly, his experience was a city council member for the city of Cincinnati, and then he was one of the heads of ticket sales for the Bengals. He's the guy who founded the club, brought him through USL, got him in MLS. He's kind of been that figurehead, the guy out front. He started, he blames it on, a quick transition. I still think there was plenty of time to get somebody, but you know what? He tried to go his own way. So he built a team that was fundamentally flawed. He tried to rely on guys like Luke Sassano, who was a former MLS player, but he was the NASL GM. You had Alan Koch, who was really a USL 2 manager and a MLS assistant for a brief time, but guys that just didn't have a ton of connections in the league, experience in the league. They failed, but they moved on from that quickly. I think the biggest letdown really was with Gerard Nijkamp as general manager. He was over at Pexwool in the Netherlands, had some success there as a small budget club, taking them to really nice levels, won some trophies. He came over, and honestly, from day one, it was apparent that while he had connections across the world to get players, he never fully understood the roster mechanisms of MLS. He was giving guys like Alan Cruz a bump from $300,000 to over $1 million in salary. He was paying guys way too much money. It really showed. FC Cincinnati this year failed to have any experience at right back on the roster day one and any experience in defensive midfield. Right now, FC Cincinnati has been playing either a center back or Joe Jao, who was a converted winger. Now he's been hurt for the last month or two, but he started out as a right back. So you're moving a guy from right wing to right back with the guy. I love Joe Jao. I love his hustle, but he's not a right back. And then you're moving Yu Kubo, who's a second striker / left winger, in to play defensive midfield. It's just the way that they've pigeonholed themselves over the last couple of years with bad signings, giving guys way too much money, just not understanding how the salary system works. And that's why you're seeing FC Cincinnati going to win the wooden spoon for the third year in a row. So if FC Cincinnati looking at this general manager search, they tried to go big. They called a bunch of MLS clubs and said, we want your Ernst Tanners of the world. We want to go out and sign the biggest, baddest guys. Now, you know what? Honestly, a lot of those teams are not going to go with the great general manager. So where do you go next? You go with guys who are that next level. The guys that hopefully are going to make that jump to a great general manager in MLS. So I think Chris Albright kind of fits that mold. He's got a tough road ahead of him. You talked about it, how he's a cap expert. That is going to be his toughest part. It's going to be clearing some of these dead weight contracts like Kamahela Makocho. And you know what? Yu Kubo and Alan Cruz, who I think they're decent players, they're getting paid way too much. So how can you create some roster flexibility? And then, you know what? I'm not as much worried as, can he bring in the next Brenner or the next big name signing? Because I think FC Cincinnati, they're going to do that just because the way they're going to spend money on transfer fees to get some of these high impact players in the league. They're across the world to come into this league. So I think it's still an attractive city. It's an attractive team. We're still seeing the fan base show up week in and week out. I just think FC Cincinnati needed a guy who's going to bring structure and a plan on how to build this team when it comes around to the salary cap. And I think Chris Albright, while I don't know him personally, I think he kind of fits a lot of those characteristics where it seems like a logical choice that he might have success in rebuilding this club.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I will say about Chris Albright is before games and everything, he'll walk around the concourse in the stadium. He'll walk around the supporters section below them, and he'll give you high fives. He'll talk to you. So he's very, very personable, and hopefully he continues that in Cincinnati, where he makes the fans feel like they matter. Which I don't see why he wouldn't, when that just seems like how he was raised. He knows that fans matter, and he makes it seem like he wants to have a conversation with you. And so I've seen plenty of fans of the Philadelphia Union say that, yeah, he didn't have to come out of his way and have a conversation, but they say hi, and he goes into a deep conversation with them, how fans think the season's going, what they think about this player and everything. So, yeah, I mean, that's what you want from a GM. You want somebody that has a good understanding of MLS, but you also want them to be personal too. And you guys are getting a great one in Chris Albright. And your brother, I think, made a tweet. I think they saw this. Brian, you were talking about going big or go home. He came out and said, yeah, let's go for Jim Curtin. And it doesn't go.
Oh, you're talking about coaches. Yeah. Well, circling back on what you just said about Chris Albright, and honestly, that's going to go into this next coach. I feel like the guys that FC Cincinnati have brought in, especially all the Dutch managers like Ron Jans, Jaap Stam, Gerard Nijkamp, it almost kind of felt like this was like maybe a stepping stone for them. Like, hey, it sounds like cool. Maybe I'll come over here and do this for a couple of years and then leave. And you saw Gerard Nijkamp. That's what happened. Jaap Stam, I think he was out anyway because the team was going to want to bring in their new general manager was going to bring in their own coach. But I just think it's important. We saw during the USL days, players like Emmanuel Ledesma and Corbin Bone and Jimmy McLaughlin, they felt like this was their city. And I really believe that with Albright and whoever he brings in, he's going to need to get the buy-in back from the fan base. Like, we need to trust you. We've been burned really hard the last 3 years. We want him to come in and be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to come out. You said, I'm going to buy supporters beers. We're going to go out and we're going to have a good time. We're going to get to know each other. You believe in me. I'll believe in you. And make this like, I'm going to be your Cincinnati guy. I know he's a Philly guy. He's played several spots across the league, but he's got the opportunity here with a strong ownership group behind him to really make this his own. So that's what if I can give him any advice, is to go get that buy-in from the fan base and make this your town. Every loss hurts you. Every win gets you elevated. Be out there engaging with fans. And what you just said there, being around the supporter section before games, that really gives me, some good heart. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the one name that Philadelphia Union fans, we always knew that Chris Albright was going to leave. Like I said earlier, it had to be the right job, the right time. And I think uh, we've talked about it enough already where Cincinnati, they have money. And so it looks like it's a very, very intriguing project for him. And I know that he mentioned in a short press release that the team released said that you guys have world-class facilities at Cincinnati. You guys have that brand new stadium. So I think all these were just more pluses for him to check off. Okay, yeah, this makes an attractive offer to go to Cincinnati. And like Chris Albright, we all expect Pat Noonan to leave the Philadelphia Union. Every offseason we're like, okay, Pat Noonan's going to leave for the DC job. Pat Noonan's going to leave for Real Salt Lake, and he's still here. Well, it makes too much sense for Pat Noonan not to become the next head coach for FC Cincinnati, because when Chris Albright did a press release to the media here in Philadelphia, first name that he thanked was Pat Noonan. And I'm like, you go out of your way not to name Jim Curtin, not to name Ernst Tenner. You say Pat Noonan. And that tells me that he's already having thoughts about bringing Pat Noonan in as the next head coach of Cincinnati. Now, maybe he gives your interim manager the rest of the season, and then he really does a deep dive in. But I really do believe that Pat Noonan is his guy. And then there's reports out there that his assistant technical director at the Philadelphia Union, Kyle McCarthy, is going to follow to Cincinnati to become your technical director. So Philadelphia Union fans were hoping that, okay, well, we know we're going to lose Chris Albright, but Kyle can become our new technical director. It's definitely not happening. He's going to take that role with Chris Albright because those guys have worked closely the last couple of years, have a really good chemistry. But then from players, you've been talking about where you guys are weak. You know, I mentioned on my show last episode, maybe I could see a person like Elsinio or Colin going to Cincinnati as a coach if Pat Noonan does get the job, just because of the relationship that Pat Noonan has with Elsinio, that he has with Aurelian Colin. Both of these players are getting working on their coaching badges right now. Now, it would be really hard for me to see Elsinio say, okay, yeah, I'm going to leave Philadelphia, go to Cincinnati, unless he really wants to go with Pat Noonan, if Pat Noonan gets the job, right? I know him and his family are extremely happy in Philadelphia. So we've seen the Philadelphia Union give a couple Brazilians coaching roles in the academy. Could they do the same with Elsinio? Sure. But if they're saying, we'll give you a role with the first team, would he listen? Who knows? Now, that's just me guessing, but players that can definitely play and contribute to Cincinnati. Mataj Orvac, who we loaned to a team out in Slovakia, where we originally bought him from Slovakia, couldn't break into the starting 11 or run the bench. And so Ernst Tanner's like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and loan you out since we can't do anything with you. And it's better for you to play than sit on the bench or not even sit on the bench. This guy's a center defensive midfielder / center back. He was a Golden Boy nomination in 2018. He's only 23 years old. Chris Albright was there when Ernst Tanner brought him into the club, so he knows what he has to offer firsthand, seeing him in practice and everything. I think that's a player you guys could look at last season.
Sell me on Pat Noonan. I hate taking over your show real quick, but sell me on Pat Noonan. What? So FC Cincinnati, we're talking about bringing in a first-time general manager. You're talking about now bringing in a first-time technical director in Kyle McCarthy. And then you want us to eat a first-time head coach. Now, FC Cincinnati, while we've been poor, we are still an ambitious club. Tell me, why should I be excited about Pat Noonan?
Guy who's been an assistant coach all over. I feel like he's been with Bruce Arena at LA Galaxy. He's been an assistant with the U.S. men's national team. So he has experience, right, as an assistant at some big jobs and everything. But I think the one thing fans don't realize is, unless you go to practices, unless you go to Jim Curtin's press conferences, Jim Curtin's not shy to say that, look, I'm not in charge of the whole training sessions. He knows what his strengths are of his first-team staff, and Pat Noonan leads a lot of those training sessions. Pat Noonan's the guy who's calling a lot of the shots tactically. And so I know that's one thing that Philadelphia Union fans complain about a lot is, oh, Jim Curtin's not a great tactical coach. Why isn't he making this? Why isn't he subbing that?
The reason why I bring that up, because it was at Florian Valleau. He had an interesting interview on, I want to say it was like Medium or something like that. And they were interviewing him about Jaap Stam. This was before Jaap Stam got fired. And he said, really like Jaap Stam, but he trusts all of his tactical stuff to his assistants. And we really only hear from him the day before when he breaks down the opponent and tells us what we're going to do. And so he doesn't really give you a lot of feedback either one way or the other. And I think that's one thing we've seen from FC Cincinnati over the last 3 years, maybe outside of the short tenure of Ron Jans before he had his incident and they had to leave the club, is that there has been very little tactical guidance, or at least a plan on the field that we can see outside of what any other generic coach would do. And so if I'm looking to make my first hire is a general manager, I'm not so sure I get a guy who is new, unless you said the relationship between Albright and Noonan is apparently very close. I'm just very worried. First time head coach, first time, general manager. If it's going to be that guy, I want to make sure he is dotting his I's and crossing his T's and communicating the style of play. Because one thing you watch a lot, you've seen Philly, especially when they're counterattacking and whatnot, these guys are going to be here, and FC Cincinnati, it's like they look around. They've got to look around because they don't know where their players are going to be on the field. Whereas you get some of these clubs, like even Nashville, like Gary Smith's done a tremendous job. They know they're going to play from the center back to the wing, to the defensive midfielder, out back to the wing, into the striker or whatnot. And FC Cincinnati is very much like hero ball. So I just, if it's going to be Pat Noonan, I want him to be successful. I'm a little bit scared there. But if you're telling me he's got that tactical nuance and he can communicate that team and he's maybe the reason to Philly's success or a big part of Philly's success, maybe that's something I can buy into.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they all have a hand in it. I mean, look, Philadelphia Union, the offseason, they went out and hired a set piece coach because the last couple of years, the Philadelphia Union weren't getting anything out of set pieces. And I don't have the stat in front of me, but this Union, I feel like, was scoring set pieces left and right this season because they go out and sign a guy, Frank Leist from Germany. Ernst Tenner had that relationship with Frank prior in Germany, and Frank, I guess, was looking for a job, and Ernst got him hired here. And Jim Curtin's not afraid to say, look, I know what my strengths are. I know what my weaknesses are. I know what my coaching staff's strengths are. And Pat Noonan, if you go to practices and everything, he's leading a lot of those practices because Jim Curtin trusts him that much. And yeah, it is a lot to be scared about a first-year GM, a first-year coach and everything because, look, it's so easy for all that to blow up in your face. And you're the same place that you guys are today. And now you're on to a new GM, you're into a new manager, and it's like, great, why? You were talking about trust. And it's like, you want the supporters, you want to trust the GM, you want to trust the head coach and everything. And it takes a lot of trust to trust people that are in those positions for the very first time. But yeah, I think there's a reason why Pat Noonan keeps getting linked with job after job, year after year, and he's going to these interviews, and for whatever reason, he's not making it through the final process to be a finalist for that job. And who knows how he does in the interview, but just from how things are here in Philadelphia, how highly Chris Albright, Jim Curtin talk about Pat Noonan, that's a guy that I definitely wouldn't be scared about. And look, we've all said it here in Philadelphia. When Jim Curtin leaves, we want Pat Noonan to be the next head coach of the Philadelphia Union. And we know that Jim Curtin, who knows how long he's going to be here, and we know we can't hold on to Pat Noonan forever because this guy's been interviewing for head coaching jobs the last couple of years. It's obvious this guy wants a head coaching job. It just has to be like Chris Albright, the right place, the right time, and
I got a solution for you.
Yeah, give you guys Jim Curtin.
Send us Curtin. You got your guy, and we're good. You got Noonan. We got Curtin. MLS experience we need in Cincinnati. Whoever comes, like if they just get us like 500, if God, I can't wish this high, but let's say he gets to 7th place, we're in the playoffs. That guy's getting a statue right now. He's getting a statue. We'll build it. I'll do it myself. I don't care.
Well, I mean, we'll go ahead and entertain that thought of Jim Curtin because, look, Jim Curtin, he's talked about it the last couple of weeks when Chris Albright's names came up for GM roles where he said, frankly, yeah, it would suck to lose him, but he knows that he's a great guy and everything. So Jim Curtin and Chris Albright are really, really close. And sure, if we want to entertain that Jim Curtin in Cincinnati, let's go ahead. We can talk about it right here. I think Jim Curtin, when he's done, he'll go to Europe. He's talked about coaching a team in CONCACAF. A lot of people think it's going to be Jamaica one day, not the U.S. national team, just because of his relationship with Corey Burke, Andre Blake, Alvis Powell. Big staples for the Jamaican national team, but this is a guy that's not been shy to say, yeah, I want to coach in Europe one day, but I don't know. Look, you guys, your brother talked about going big or go home. Jim Curtin's definitely going big.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I right now, so like I mentioned FC Cincinnati, they called around to interview top general manager candidates from across the league. that are current general managers as well. So I completely think that they're going to do that with coaches. So like, honestly, like I think you call Philly for Curtin, you call Bob Braley's agents because he's out, and apparently that might be real in Cincinnati. I would love to see that. But you know what? If not, I do think I would prefer a Pat Noonan to see what he can do versus like somebody mentioned Chris Armas. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
no,
God,
please,
no.
leave that alone. Come on. But, you know, I would love somebody like that. You know, we're not going to get a Vermees. But, you know, if we can, you know, get one of those guys or another top assistant, I really just don't want to go to that European well. Jaap Stam, I feel, just did not respect the league. And neither did Nijkamp. And so right now, just develop a base. And then, you know, in a couple of years, if you get a base under you, maybe then you make that next leap. But until then, I just think you got to get a guy who's going to buy into the system in this league, knowing that manager is not going to ever have a perfect roster because it's Major League Soccer. You're never going to have a perfect roster. But get creative, get a plan in place, then execute. We're not even getting the little things right now in Cincinnati. So if we can just get just a baseline, just to get a floor to build off of, I think FC Cincinnati fans are going to buy right back in.
Yeah, absolutely. So at least we're both in the same boat where we agree that for Cincinnati, they got to go with players, coaches that have MLS roots because, look, you guys have went the European way the last couple of years and it's not went your way. But I'll go back real quick and name one other player that FC Cincinnati fans should take a close look on is Brandon Craig. He is a Philadelphia Union homegrown player. He's 17 years old. He has not played a single minute for the Philadelphia Union. He hasn't made the bench. And maybe some of your listeners are listening. Maybe you're listening. Okay, why would we want to buy this guy? Well, this guy has experience playing with the U.S. youth national team, with the U15s. He's, I believe, captained that team. A lot of people that cover the academy for the Philadelphia Union say that he's been one of the best academy players for the Philadelphia Union the last couple of years. But the only problem is he's primarily a number 6 or he plays as a center back. And what do the Philadelphia Union have a lot of? They have a lot of number 6s and a lot of center backs in the team right now. So it's really hard for Brandon Craig to break down the door and everything. And look, could Chris Albright say, okay, we'll give you blah, blah, blah transfer fee. And then Ernst Tanner likes to get those sell-on clauses. And could Chris Albright bring Brandon Craig to Cincinnati, a 17-year-old? I know that's not a lot to get excited for, but from the little bit that I've watched him, people that I've talked to that have watched him really, really close, people are really high on this kid. And I don't think he's ever going to get a chance in Philadelphia. And Cincinnati, where you mentioned Jimmy McLaughlin, there are players, Austin Berry, I believe, still at Cincinnati. There are links at Cincinnati that have played for the Philadelphia Union. You bring Chris Albright, who was just with the Philadelphia Union. I think Brandon Craig is definitely a player that Cincinnati fans should keep an eye on, where maybe Philadelphia Union fans don't know too much about him because he's not playing a lot. But when he was playing for the Academy, Bethlehem Steel, dude looked really, really well.
Well, what's your boy Alejandro Bedoya doing?
Right?
You know, because him and Jeff Cameron are BFFs, apparently.
I know, right? So could he go for a heyday 1-year deal? You guys would take that, wouldn't you? 1-year deal, Ali Bedoya?
God, I'd give him 2 right now.
Absolutely. I don't know. I always felt like if Ali leaves the Union, I felt like he would always go down to Miami because I know he has family down in Miami. But I don't know. Maybe he ends his playing career. But
I just think that veteran presence, that guy who, you know, Jeff Cameron, he's brought so much to this club. Just as far as like an attitude and a never give up, you know, way. I think if you get another guy like Bedoya in there, who's right now FC Cincinnati is so young. You've got Brenner, who's 20 or 21, Isaac Atanga 21, Alvaro Barrial 21. You just brought in, you know, a young guy like Kyle Scott. This team is still quite young. Now you've got a couple, you know, older guys that are slanting the curve, like Edgar Castillo is a backup left back, and Jeff Cameron, but there's still a lot of youth. Gustavo Vallecilla at center back is 20. I think if you can get like another MLS vet in there who knows how the league works, who I would say is very cultured, you know, Alejandro Bedoya, I think could step into that locker room and talk to everybody and would garner their respect. So that's a move that I would be looking for, not necessarily Bedoya mold. And if it's Bedoya, I'd love it. Gives us a lot of flexibility in the league, creativity where we just haven't had. But I'm really interested to see who Albright's going to bring in and what style of play.
Well, if you want a player that has MLS experience, why not hit up Miami and ask for Breck Shea, right?
Hey, dude, Breck Shea scored as many goals in TQL Stadium as FC Cincinnati has. So he's killed us. I think both losses to Inter Miami at TQL Stadium, he scored the winner. Jerk.
So yeah,
he scored the first goal in TQL Stadium. We're like, of course it's going to be Breck Shea. Going to be like, one of their famous players, like one of the Higuain brothers or something. It's got to be Breck freaking Shea.
That is awesome. I did not know that. But look, there's a lot in the future to be positive about for Cincinnati this season. It's been a wrap. Like I mentioned earlier, last time I bring it up, I promise, 4-8-15 on the season. But of those 8 draws you guys have had this season, 4 of those games you guys have had the lead, and you guys blew those. And if you guys would have got those wins, that would put you guys at 32 points right now. And I know that's you guys are like, but we're not at 32 points. But
yeah,
there's
we're at 20.
Yeah, there's 4 wins. Could have been 4 wins.
And the thing out of those, I want to say is like 2 or 3 of them we were up a man as well, and a couple of those I think we were up 2 goals and let the team back in. But honestly, we like those results gave us hope. But honestly, it's been losing 9 out of the last 10, something like that, or 8 of the last 9 games I've seen Cincinnati's lost. Really been a brutal stretch of form lately. Some have been close, some haven't been. Just not scoring goals reliably. And then the defense just turns off one player or another. And, that's all she wrote. So kind of an interesting time with FC Cincinnati. No GM, no head coach. Now maybe there's a GM, maybe give some of these guys a prove it moment, but we'll see.
Anything to be positive about? I mean, yeah, Chris Albright's enough to get excited about, but on the playing field, anything to be excited about?
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of good pieces on this roster. Now, Ronald Matarrita, he's going to be on Costa Rican duty, so he's not going to be there this weekend. Luciano Costa, he's still a really good player. Now, I think he's suffering a little bit. He's really brought it every match. He hasn't always pulled it off, but I think right now he's almost in a little bit too much of like a responsibility or a hero ball movement. Like he's got to do it all himself. And I feel like the only guy on the field he trusts is Brenner. So if you can man mark Brenner out, you don't give Lucho options, and then you push Lucho off the ball, there's really no other path to the goal other than just like a fluke moment of brilliance. So, I still am high on the long-term prospects of Luciano Costa and Brenner. And I think if Albright can get another DP, maybe like a DP left winger, a guy who maybe the defense has to look another way as well, it's just going to give those 2 guys a freed up moment, because they are very skilled players, Brenner and Lucho are. So I'm just looking to see what Albright does there in the future. So those guys are to be positive about. Again, a lot of young potential. Isaac Atanga and Alvaro Barria on the wings. Both guys are very fast, like to take on players. Again, anytime they touch the ball, it can go in the goal. But the big issue right now is midfield for FC Cincinnati. And I'm talking like the 6 and 8. There's really nobody right now who can do either role reliably well. Caleb Stenko played there this week. Terrible. Harrison Medina, I really love Harrison Medina. I really do. He just doesn't fit this team, but he tries every single match. They had him a little bit advanced this week, kind of like roaming playmaker a little bit. But then that just puts so much responsibility on Caleb Stenko to do anything defensively. And the guy he's got one move, and it's pass it straight back to the center backs. He's just not worth it. Kamahel Makojo's making $1 million. He can't see the field. Alan Cruz, again, making $1 million, and he's just not good. Yuya Kubo is playing that 6 role, but again, he's a converted winger forward. I actually kind of liked what he's done. He's grown into that role, but I think the last 2 matches, the new coaching staff said, let's just put him back on left wing, see what we got, see if that's a piece we can build around or not. And I just think it's all right. So if you're going to be Philly, take advantage of that midfield, turn us over. Honestly, you just let us have the ball, let us go up the field, turn us over, and the guys are all out of position. You can just shove that ball right down our throat, no matter what Jeff Cameron, Viacia, or Tyler Blackett, whoever's playing this week does. it's like I said earlier, there's so many different puzzle pieces, and none of them quite fit perfectly yet. And so, that's been the problem this year. It's going to be a problem that Albright's got to fix. And I'm just looking forward to seeing what solutions he's got up his sleeve.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of that Cincinnati versus Philadelphia Union game this Saturday, looking at the Philadelphia Union, we are without a ton of players this weekend against you guys. Jamiro Montero, Daniel Gazdag, Alvis Powell, Andre Blake, Jose Martinez, Olivier Mbizo, all gone because of international duty. Kai Wagner picked up that yellow card against Columbus, so our starting left back, he is out. Our backup left back, Matt Real's not signing a contract extension with the team, so he's been sent away from the club. I know he's still practicing and everything, but he's not making the bench. He's not making the game day roster, so I fully expect Matt Real not to be there on the bench or starting against Cincinnati just because of that. So, I mean, it leaves a lot of questions. What do the Philadelphia Union want to throw out against Cincinnati? And this is something like, when I messaged you, I was like going back and forth, like, what formation could I see the Philadelphia Union do? Yeah, they play a 4-4-2 diamond. I'm not really sure I see the diamond because of all the players that they are missing this week. When we played Cincinnati, when we had a lot of players gone because of the international break, we played a 3-4-2-1 with three in the back with Jacob Glesnes, Jack Elliott, and Stuart Finley. Olivier Mbizo, Jose Martinez, Jack McGlynn, and Leon Flock as your four in the midfield. Quinn Sullivan and Paxton Aronson playing in your more advanced roles, 2 number 10s, and then Sergio Santos was the lone striker in that game. And it didn't go as bad as I thought it would go, but we still lost that game 2-1. Paxton Aronson scored a world-class goal. Sergio Santos had a chance in that game to have us up early, but Matt Turner has been playing phenomenal this season, made a big save on Sergio Santos, and because of that, it seems like he took all the confidence out of Sergio Santos and didn't get close to a sniff a goal after that big save by Matt Turner. But I think I really thought we would go with a 3-4-2-1, go 3 in the back with Elliott, Glesnes, and Finley again, but then I talked myself out of it. And the formation the Union played a lot of before Ernst Tenner got here and said we're going to play the diamond, I can really see the Union going to a 4-2-3-1, the double pivot in the midfield. So Matt Freese, the goalkeeper, with Andre Blake gone on international duty. I know Joe Bendick's been the backup goalkeeper on the bench the last couple of weeks, but I think a lot of that's due to the fact that Matt Freese has been playing friendlies with Union 2, staying game fit. So because of that, I think Matt Freese is going to get the starting goal. On the right, homegrown right back Nate Harriel is going to get the start, in my opinion. Jacob Glesnes, Jack Elliott, don't have to worry about those two missing. They're going to start as the 2 center backs. Leon Flock, who has played as a number 8, he's played as a wing back, he's played as a number 6. He's played everywhere for us. I think this is the game that we see him play primarily as a left back, not as a left wing back. I think as a left back. The double pivot, I think it's going to be Jack McGlynn and Ali Bedoya. Jack McGlynn, again, another homegrown signing who's got a good amount of minutes this season. The more and more that he plays, it looks really good. He's just like Harris Mandunian, except he doesn't have all the experience as a killer of a left foot. He'll play defense, unlike Harris. Like you said, love Harris, everything that he's done for the club. He leaves all out there, but his legs are done. He can't do the defensive work. You guys see what Philadelphia Union fans were complaining about the last couple of years. Your 3 players up front, I think, Paxton Aronson, Quinn Sullivan, your 2 quote-unquote wingers, your outside players. Kasper Szybelko, I think, is going to get the start as the number 10. This is something that Jim Curtin's mentioned before in the past, that he likes the idea of playing Kasper as a number 10. He knows that he can do it. We've seen Kasper play a couple times in games as the number 10. So I think Kasper Szybelko, if Jim Curtin doesn't want to have him on the bench, I think Kasper can definitely play the number 10 role. I think we will see him play there if we go with a 4-2-3-1. And then the lone striker up top is Sergio Santos, where I don't think he's a great striker by himself. I think if you're looking for a one striker, you would put Kasper Szybelko up there, but there's no way that Jim Curtin brings in Anthony Fontana to start this game, because Anthony Fontana, just like Matt Real, was offered a contract extension, turned it down, so he's leaving the club at a free, and so the team's like, okay, you don't want to sign for us? We're not going to play you. So I think that's why Kasper is going to play the number 10. Yeah, you could put Paxton Aronson there, but now it just makes too much sense, in my opinion, to put Kasper at the 10 as opposed to leaving him as the lone number 9 and bringing Anthony Fontana in as a 10, just because the team seems pretty much done with Anthony Fontana. But again, look, Jim Curtin can surprise all of us and go with a 4-4-2 formation. The players I gave you, the formations I gave you, maybe none of that happens. Maybe they go with 3 in the back because we saw it once against New England. Maybe Jim says, okay, let's do it again. When we went down a man against Columbus, he brought in Stuart Finley, I believe, around the 75th minute or something. So we were playing 15 minutes of 3 in the back. So I don't know, maybe Jim was throwing Stuart Finley out there to get them used to playing in a 3 center back formation again. But look, we're recording this podcast on a Tuesday night. I know I just got the email that Jim Curtin's press conference is tomorrow. So maybe something changes from now till tomorrow and Jim Curtin gives a little bit more into what he's thinking for formation wise. But yeah, one thing I know for sure is there is a ton of Philadelphia Union players missing. And I know a lot of Philadelphia Union fans think this is going to be a walk in the park. It's Cincinnati. They sit in last place. I don't think so. I really don't think that's the case because Philadelphia Union haven't won a game on the road since May 23rd. And they have won no games the last 5 road games. They are 2 draws, 3 losses on the road. The last draw coming against the New York Red Bulls. And for all those Union fans are like, oh yeah, this is an easy 3-0 victory. I don't think it is. I really don't. If you look at the game last season when these 2 teams played in Cincinnati, it ended 0-0. And look, I've said it all the time. The Union need to get to 55 points this season. And I said I wouldn't be surprised if they don't pick up all 3 points against Cincinnati or Toronto. One of those games on the road, I feel like the Union aren't going to get all 3 points. And out of those 2 games, I think it's this game against Cincinnati this weekend.
You know, it's interesting. I tend to think like this might actually be one where MLS goes, how did Cincinnati get a result there? So, you know, you talk about the new manager bounce and all that. Like Tyrone Marshall's the new interim head coach. Well, the guy, he was on the bench of RSL for the last 5 years before he came the beginning of this year to run our U19 team before he serves as head coach of the new MLS2 team. Because, you know, with that new league forming, he's going to be the new head coach of the U23s. So the guy has a great resume, but he was brought in last Monday and they had a game Wednesday again at Toronto. So they had to go up there, get through customs, and then they had to practice up there Thursday and come back. So they didn't have the whole squad. And then they played Saturday. So just a ridiculous week. Couldn't really drill down what he wanted to do. He just kind of had to throw out players. He had to throw out bodies and just kind of continue status quo outside of throwing Kubo to the left wing. So I'm really interested to see what he does. He's been very, very fiery, both post-game matches, saying, oh, there's some guys on this team who aren't playing defense. So you know what? Alvaro Barrios didn't get a start, and he's been penned in as a starter. And you've seen some other guys, Alan Cruz, who's a high-profile player. He didn't. I don't even know if he appeared on Saturday. And then he brought in guys like Calvin Harris, who was a top draft pick who had been hurt. He's finally incorporating himself back into the squad. And Kimi Ordonez, who's homegrown, who Marshall was this guy's head coach up until the summer when Kimi signed that deal. So I'm really interested to see what he's going to do this weekend. I still think it's going to probably be something like 4-2-3-1. I just don't think they're going to get too far away from that. But I'm really interested to see who he's going to put out there. A guy like Kimi, he's 19 years old. He doesn't have anything loose. He actually has some sauce on him. I really like what he's done. He's just got to bring it all together and learn the whole team. But I want to see what tactics Tyrone Marshall's done. He's talked a lot about getting guys back in the correct spots on transition. When we get forward, we're so out of place. He's got to get the guys back in position. I think they're going to probably work on that a lot more in practice this week. They don't let us see practice. They just let us see the 15 minutes before they're doing the stretching, all that. But, it's going to be an interesting game. I think they're going to work on some things they haven't worked on in the past. You got guys like Larry Sunderland, who was the former U17 head coach for the U.S. Men's National Team, who's now head of our academy. He brought in an assistant with him to help do this next, 7-8 matches for Cincinnati. So if you might see that quote unquote new manager bounce or that one result that's going to grab you, I kind of actually do think it's this week. It's kind of like the perfect storm for the Union. FC Cincinnati's been terrible. There's some changes. You guys are missing a lot of guys. You never know. I mean, anytime you have Lucho Acosta on the field, there's a chance to win. It's just, you got to get the supporting cast around him to just stop laying eggs.
And Chris Albright, his first game in charge of Cincinnati is against the Philadelphia Union. And wouldn't he love to get a result against the Philadelphia Union?
Be a great story.
It absolutely would. So all I'm going to say is I haven't made predictions the last couple episodes. I'm going to continue not to do that. All I'm going to say is for any Philadelphia Union fans, I think that this is an easy 3 points. It absolutely is not. But Brad, it's been a blast having you on the podcast. I look forward to this game Saturday. But for people that are listening to the podcast, I know this isn't a Cincinnati podcast, but we were talking before. You guys do such a great work there at Cincinnati Soccer Talk, both with writing, and then you guys have a couple shows. You guys go live on YouTube, I believe it is. So where can people find you guys?
Sure. It's at Cincy Soccer Talk on Twitter. We're on Cincinnati Soccer Talk on Facebook. Our website, cincinnattisoccertalk.com. We go live every Monday night on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So you can feel free to tune in, download our episode. We talked a ton about the Union this week. My guy, Michael Lahoud, he was a co-host on our show. I think he played with you guys for a bit there. He's really pumped on this Albright signing. I know he's gone and he's a color commentator for Austin, but he's really interested in this signing. And we had some guys on the show this week talk about Albright and in the Union. And you know what? If we can just get a little bit of your guys' success, next year, I think a lot of us will be happy. And you know what? It's kind of the cycle of things, Todd. Whenever you have success, you're going to lose people. And I think, honestly, that's just a credit to what Jim Curtin and Ernst Tanner have done. And if we can just benefit a little bit, I appreciate it. And you know what? It gives you guys the opportunity to bring in the next hotshot technical director to learn under Tanner and then move him on. And you know what? I hope Ernst Tanner's your GM for the next 10 years and he gives you trophies, not at our, offset, of course. But you know what? I really like what you guys have going on over in Philly. If we can be the next Philly, but spend a little bit more, maybe it'll work. We'll see.
Absolutely. I think it will. I definitely do. Just, it's all about the front office giving Chris Albright patience. Fingers crossed you guys don't take Pat Noonan, but I really think that's going to happen. And look, Mike Lahoud loved his time with the Philadelphia Union. I think he's at Austin, right, as a color commentator. So yeah, just that dude's so passionate about MLS. And so still finding ways to tie in Cincinnati to Philadelphia. There's definitely a ton of ties there.
There's a lot of synergy right now,
man. It is. So if we can give you guys that success that Chris brought the Philadelphia Union, then look, we'll all be happy. If the Philadelphia Union can still be successful, you guys can finally start being successful in MLS. Everybody's happy.
Two of the most passionate fan bases in MLS. Like, outside of Seattle and Portland and then Atlanta, like Philly in Cincinnati. That would be an awesome rivalry, even a little bit distant, but like a lot of same common threads. The way you guys grew your team organically, forced to move to MLS, the way Cincinnati did the same thing to force to move to MLS. I honestly, it's one of the franchises that I root for outside of Cincinnati. Like, I hate Nashville. Screw Nashville. Like, I hope they frickin' suck. Beat the crap out of them in the playoffs. I'll root for you guys then. But this weekend, it's going to be an interesting match, and you guys are always cool to say. I do have to say my most memorable match that I've ever watched in the history of soccer was a Cincinnati versus Union game in 2019. And it was, I want to say it was like April. It was either late March or April. Nippert Stadium. It was like 40 degrees and just dumped. I swear it had to have dumped 2 or 3 inches of rain. It was the most miserable game ever. You guys won. I want to say it was like 2 or 3 to nothing, but it was still cool to be there. It was, it was when we were still on our new team high. I will never forget that match. Like, everybody always goes, "Oh, you remember that Philly match that first year?"
It's an awesome story. That's when you guys were playing on the college field still. I definitely remember that.
Nippert,
game,
man. I love Nippert. That was a great place. That's one thing. It was so cool. It was easy to get in and out of. All the awesome bars. I think we're still missing that little community feel that we built from Nippert. That's my one sad point right now with this club. I'm sure we'll figure it out. Everything's so new, COVID and all that. Hard time to move, but I will always love Nippert.
Absolutely. But it's been a blast having you on the podcast, Brad. Definitely want to try to get you back on the podcast when you guys come down to Subaru Park, I believe near the end of October. And, hopefully you guys, things start to turn around a little bit. We can talk about more positive things for Cincinnati. Hopefully the Union can continue to fight for their second place playoff spot in the playoffs. But yeah, until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.